defend Israel against this attack. U.S. naval destroyers joined Israeli air defense units in firing interceptors to shoot down inbound missiles. President Biden and Vice President Harris monitored the attack and the response from the White House Situation Room, joined in person and remotely by their national security team. We are still working with the IDF and the authorities in Israel to assess the impact of the attack. But at this time, and I stress at this time, we do not know of any deaths in Israel. We are tracking the reported
Jake
death
Sullivan
of a
in the
Palestinian
press
civilian
briefing.
in Jericho in the West Bank. We do not know of any damage to aircraft or strategic military assets in Israel. In short, based on what we know at this point, this attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. This was first and foremost the result of the professionalism of the IDF, but in no small part because of the skilled work of the U.S. military and meticulous joint planning in anticipation of the attack. We are also aware of reports of a terrorist attack in Jaffa, and we took the lives of a number of Israeli civilians and wounded several others today. Our condolences go out to the families of the victims and to the family of the Palestinian civilian in Jericho. Obviously, my update here is based on early reports, and we reserve the right to amend and adjust as necessary as we gather more information. The word fog of war was invented for a situation like this. This is a fluid situation. We will consult with the Israelis on next steps in terms of the response and how to deal with what Iran has just done, and we will continue to monitor that U.S. citizens should avail themselves of commercial means to depart Lebanon, given everything that's going on. We have said that from this podium, from multiple podiums. We continue to say that, but we have not begun triggering a non-combatant emergency evacuation, a NEO, and do not have an intention to do so at this time. If that changes, we'll let you know. But we continue to reinforce the point. American citizens in Lebanon should follow the guidance from the State Department, which is to find civilian commercial means to depart, because in extremis, we may not be able to get them out safely. Yes.
Thanks, Jake. What is the U.S. view on whether Israel should retaliate, and what is your concern about this leading to a wider escalation of war in the region?
We've had some initial discussions with the Israelis in the aftermath of this at the military level and also at the White House to Prime Minister's office level. We'll continue those conversations in the hours ahead. I'm not going to prejudge or get ahead of anything. We want to have some deep consultations with the Israelis, and I'll have more to report to you after we get the opportunity for deeper discussions.
And escalation in the region?
Obviously, this is a significant escalation by Iran,
Yeah, you think?
a significant event. And it is equally significant that we were able to step up with Israel and create a situation in which
we're so
no
great
one was
and wonderful.
killed in this attack in Israel, so far as we know. At
Stop
this
covering
time.
for Harris.
We are now going to look at what the appropriate next steps are to secure, first and foremost, American interests, and then to promote
Turn
stability
Tehran
to the
into a
maximum
glass
extent
pile.
possible as we go forward. Yeah.
Back in April, the president's message to Israel was to take the win when the U.S. and Israel were able to intercept the barrage of Iranian missiles. Is he recommending a similarly limited response this time?
I will not, from this podium, share the president's recommendations.
Because nobody
he will
knows
have the
them.
opportunity to share them directly. We're going to have, as I said, ongoing consultations with the Israelis this afternoon, this evening. It is too early for me to tell you anything publicly in terms of our assessment or in terms of what our expectations are of the Israelis or the advice that we will give them.
So will he be speaking to Prime Minister Netanyahu today?
I don't have anything to announce from this podium, but I can tell you that he is tracking this minute by minute. We are
So get his
very
ass
much
out here.
in touch with the Israelis, and insofar as we have calls to read out, we'll make sure to read them out with you.
As the
Just
least
last
effective
question.
president ever.
Thank you, Jake. In April, after Iran struck Israel, the U.S. issued a number of sanctions as a consequence. This morning, the president said there would be severe consequences
How
if
about
Iran
ballistic
carried out
consequences?
this attack. What are those consequences, and are they more severe than sanctions?
Totally legitimate question, and
course
that
it is.
answer will come based on the conversations and consultations we have with our Israeli counterparts. It's too soon for me to stand before you today and give you an answer. What I can tell you is this. We are proud of the actions that we've taken alongside Israel to protect and defend Israel. We have made clear that there will be consequences, severe consequences for this attack, and we will work with Israel to make that the case. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
That's it?
Thank you,
That's
Jake.
it? Oh, here we go. The liar in
To the
chief.
rest of
The propagandist, America's favorite Haitian lesbian.
This morning, President Biden was briefed by his Homeland Security Advisor, Liz Sherwood Randall, on the latest impacts of Hurricane Helene, and this afternoon he will receive an interagency briefing on the Hurricane Helene response and recovery efforts.
What's all in Israel?
At the president's direction, the Biden-Harris administration continues to use every tool available to get assistance and resources to the communities that need them the most. Yesterday, the president approved a major disaster declaration for Georgia, which will unlock additional assistance to help those recovering.
There's no money.
This is in addition
Sent
to the
to
major
Ukraine.
disaster declaration swiftly approved by the president following requests from North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida, as well as requests for emergency assistance across 7 states. Tomorrow, the president will travel to Raleigh, North Carolina, where he will visit the State Emergency Operations Center to meet with local officials and also first responders. And the vice president will travel to Augusta, Georgia tomorrow, and will then head to North Carolina in the coming days. As of today, thousands of personnel from across the federal workforce are deployed and supporting state-led Hurricane Helene response efforts across the 6 affected states, including over 1,200 personnel in North Carolina. Still, there is more work to be done, and the Biden-Harris administration will be there for these communities every step of the way.
Everything is suddenly Biden-Harris.
Now, as you can see, we also have Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas.
Is he going to come lie to us now,
Thank
this
you,
piece of
Corinne, and,
feces?
Good afternoon. Before standing at the podium, I was at FEMA's National Operations Center being briefed by our personnel as well as state emergency personnel. I thought it very moving and very telling that North Carolina's emergency management director
It's been 5 days, you've done
Hurricane
nothing
Helene
yet.
as catastrophic, and noted the fact that numerous towns situated along the river had virtually disappeared, had been completely destroyed. In fact, Hurricane Helene is of an historic magnitude. This many states hit this hard. The wind field of the hurricane stretched 350 miles from its center.
Almost as far
More
as
than
your
100
mouth.
fatalities have been reported, hundreds and hundreds of homes and businesses destroyed. Our hearts break for those who have lost loved ones, and we pray for the swift assistance and rescue of those who are currently missing. We are in different phases of a post-hurricane environment, depending on the state and the location within the state. In some areas, we are still in search and recovery, search and rescue operations. In others, we are, in fact, in the response and recovery phase.
Well, that sign
I thought I
language
would
lady's
give
making
you
me nervous.
Some of the latest statistics based on the briefing that I received. And I should say that these numbers are, as you can all well understand, quite dynamic and fluid. They change minute by
All right, I don't want to mislead people here. This was not a clickbait broadcast. I didn't intend to set something up to mislead you. This was an intentional broadcast because we were informed that the White House would be going live with the Pentagon, the White House, and the State Department all appearing at a joint press conference, which was scheduled sometime between 2:30 and 3 p.m., and it has not happened. Instead, the cowards in the corrupt Biden-Harris regime, which precipitated and caused this conflict and inflamed the crisis in the Middle East, destroying the Abraham Accords, destroying peace in the Middle East, the Biden-Harris regime. Instead, they send Jake Sullivan out cowardly to not answer any questions. Jake Sullivan spoke for all of about 3 minutes. And part of that I didn't even have correct because I was trying to get the right feed on here. This one's public, so I can use this. There's no copyright on this from the White House. We, the taxpayer, pay for this broadcast. And instead of actually having a briefing on the situation in Israel, we have Jake Sullivan out there for about 3 minutes refusing to answer. He answered questions but didn't answer the questions. It's unbelievable. Yeah, she has an angry nose. She has an angry face. And she's just kind of creepy looking. She has a hairline that recedes all the way up the top of her head. That kind of is distracting there. Anyway, listening to this White House press conference, Southern government almost seems capable. Yes, Jan, I agree. So we were expecting at this time to see from this press conference, we were expecting to see those three organizations come out and tell us what's going on. Instead, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the White House have all cowering behind trying to come up with some answer. But I can tell you unequivocally at this hour, ladies and gentlemen, Joseph Robinette Biden has led the United States into a conflict in the Middle East. His incompetent, his moronic foreign policy has resulted in chaos in the Middle East, and we are now embroiled in this conflict, part and parcel of the war, having fired missiles, presumably Patriots, at the incoming Iranian missiles to defend Israel. We have now clearly taken a side beyond simply supplying weapons to a friend. He has acted as if Israel is a treaty alliance partner. We are now in the war with Israel. Make no mistake about it. Iran has allies like South Africa who will help them, have allies like China, allies like Russia who will help. Well, not really Russia, but Russia will do it just to be a thorn in our side. And we are now embroiled in a conflict of Iran's choosing as a consequence of Barack Hussein Obama and Joe Biden funneling hundreds of billions of dollars illicitly, immorally, illegitimately to the Iranian terror regime. That's what's going on. Wow. This is utter nonsense. So instead of hearing about the war that's ongoing in Israel right now, we have Alejandro Mayorkas up there lying to the American people about the response that he claims the federal government has been involved in response to Hurricane Helene. We'll wait around a little bit longer to see if we get someone else or hear some comments from the reporters.
Western North Carolina area.
Remember that the pre-positioning of assets, to include personnel as well as equipment and the like, also depends on the terrain and the access points. And so
we're getting a lecture on how to do disaster relief. We don't want to hear about disaster relief. We want to hear why it took you 5 days to do something. By the way, does this guy remind you of Cyril Ramaphosa? His movements, his tone, his speak, I mean, his round face, they look the same except one's got a better tan. They're both useless. Yeah, this is unbelievable. So we should be talking about a war right now, and instead we have Alejandro Mayorkas, Mr. disappearing when he's needed, out there at the lectern telling us at the podium about his response to Hurricane Helene. And it's a pathetic one. Politicians with their brains in neutral while they idle their lips. Cyril Mayorkas. That's good. Can't be Biden. He did nothing. His wife, however, another. Well, okay. He shouldn't be embroiled in anything. Yes. Read my forehead. This lady could have an entire whiteboard up there. Yeah, she could. She could. That's a huge forehead. And those eyes are angry. Helene is using somebody's name in vain. Who's saying anything about Helene? Can't believe these people in control of such. Yeah, Craig, I agree with you. These are a bunch of sleazeballs. Let's hear what he's got to say.
And we will continue to be there. And
it's our own Cyril Ramaphosa, known as Alejandro Mayorkas.
To access locations, we are relentless in our efforts to ensure the safety and security of all. And as Corinne pointed out, we will be there for the long haul as well.
It's not Corinne, it's Karine.
I must pay tribute
Karine Jean-Pierre.
To the heroic men and women, not only of the Federal Emergency Management Administration, but throughout the federal government and throughout the state.
Where is Biden? We want Biden.
Thank you, Secretary, for talking about electric power. I'm curious about the status of cell phone service, as the Associated Press is hearing reports that people are having a tough time using their cell phones, being able to make calls.
Because the towers are out, genius.
Yes. What are you doing, and what is the status of that right now?
In fact, communication has been difficult in a number of areas.
It's not the government's role.
Impossible. A great deal of infrastructure has been demolished. We are working with the private communications companies as well as the FCC.
It's private communications, not the government's role.
To ensure that we can rebuild.
Thank you, Roger
We have,
Rugas.
for example, deployed 50 Starlink satellite systems to help with the reconstruction of that infrastructure.
All right. What does this say? There will be a Pentagon briefing and a State Department briefing, but it won't be on this site. So I'm going to have to go there and look for that, see if I can't find it.
Working with the Defense Department, can you talk about what
So I've got a Twitter thing here to tell me that they're going to do it. So
and what the timeline is looking
see if I can't find
to
that.
reach the people that are in need there right now.
So this is at the President and Vice President's direction and all of government effort. So it's not only by land, but we have deployed air assets. The Department of Defense has been of extraordinary assistance. I don't recall exactly the number of Army Corps of Engineer that have been deployed. I think it's close to 6,000. So it's an all-of-government effort to reach individuals, not just by land, but by air as well.
And
Of
how
course.
quickly do you anticipate getting to some of those areas that have been cut off because of the roads being flooded?
As quickly as we can.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Kareem. Mr. Secretary, do you have a sense of how much money it's going to cost, A, to do this relief effort, and B, to do the rebuild effort once we get there, and how much of that will be covered
So
by
there'll be a Pentagon
insurance
press
companies,
briefing. I don't
and
know
how
about
much
the
will be
State
covered
Department.
by
Let me see.
government?
I
So
found
this
the
is a
Pentagon press briefing. I haven't started.
multi-billion-dollar undertaking in terms of the search and rescue and the response. I should note that we already have approved approximately $1.7 million
This is State Department
in
here, so
individual assistance.
waiting for the Pentagon
that
press briefing,
individuals-
scheduled for 3 p.m.
that
So don't run off,
individuals
folks.
will
We
be
may have
able
the
to
Pentagon
access. I
coming up.
believe
Just
it'll
waiting for that
be
now.
As early as tomorrow, it is a direct deposit into their accounts. But the
So we're giving people money.
rebuilding is something that is not for today, but that is going to be extraordinarily costly, and is going to be a multi-year enterprise.
Oh, it's Helene, not Helen.
Thank you, Attorney. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. 2 questions. First, about the president's decision to go to Raleigh. Can you give us a little bit?
All right, so for those tuning in now, I'll explain to you what's going on. We were promised a joint briefing. This was announced publicly by the White House, the Pentagon, and the State Department from the White House. This is from the White House. Karine Jean-Pierre was there, but the State Department apparently and the Department of Defense will be doing their own briefings. I assume, I don't know when they're going to do it, but something weird is going on here. This shows you how dysfunctional and disjointed the federal government is under the Biden regime. We have scheduled a joint press conference and then we don't pull it off. And the Pentagon is scheduled for a briefing right now. They're not doing it. I'm waiting for that to go live. When that goes live, I'll switch over to that. Meantime, we're suffering through Alejandro Mayorkas and his idiocy. This is lunatic city, to say the least. Alejandro Mayorkas is a clown car show at best, and he is a person who should be prosecuted for his failure to obey his oath to the Constitution. Anyway, so State Department press briefing, okay? Let's see if I can't find that. So I'm not finding it on, here we go. Let's go to their YouTube channel, see if I can't find it. Okay, so, yeah, starting soon. Okay, I've got it. Okay, let's see which one goes live first, the Pentagon or the State Department. So this isn't clickbait, folks. I'm trying to get you in here to talk about, well, that's not it. That's old news there, so let's go back. Okay, that's the 2 o'clock briefing. I don't want that. I want the live feed now. So starting soon. Nope. It's anyway. So we'll wait for the for the DOD one, the one coming through. But anyway, meantime, we got Mayorkas here. This guy's a jerk. Yeah, he is. He is slimy. Why not call Hurricane Kamala? Both are very destructive. I got kings named after me, Helen. Yeah, Charles. Lots of kings. Okay, he's leaving the stage. Now let's see who's coming up now.
Okay.
Karine Jean-Pierre, America's favorite Haitian lesbian. Here come the lies.
I do want to give some stats, some additional stats.
Oh, yes, please.
So that you all have this.
Where's your time?
More than 4,500 personnel from across the federal workforce. That's the numbers as of today. FEMA has shipped 7.1 million meals ready to eat, more than 7.5 million liters of water, 150 generators, and over 95,000 tarps. Nearly 1,300 urban search and rescue personnel on the ground. The Department of Defense has 30 high water trucks and 22 helicopters. So just wanted to make sure you guys have that. Those are the numbers as they...
22 helicopters for Katrina, a storm that wasn't nearly as large as this. We had over 500 helicopters in operation. They have 22. Wow. 22 helicopters under the Biden-Harris regime, over 500 during Katrina at the peak of it, and we airlifted over 18,000 people, saved their lives, 18,900 in Katrina, which was hailed as a huge failure because George Bush was in charge, and of course, we all know that George Bush hates black people, right? So obviously, it was a failure. 19,000 rescues of people, often single individuals, in Katrina by the Department of Defense, including its reserve component. 500 helicopters deployed to the region, and 75,000, 100,000 eventually military personnel deployed in response to Katrina. She hasn't mentioned any military personnel have been deployed yet. Yep.
Pandemic, and in some case have seen profits grow in excess of 800% compared to their profits prior to the pandemic. Executive compensation has grown in line with those profits, and profits have been returned to shareholders at record rates. It's only fair that workers who put themselves at risk during the pandemic to keep ports open see a meaningful increase in their wage.
Look at this. So they're actually supporting this barbaric 77% pay raise that these scumbags are asking for, this longshoremen. This communist state, are we ready? Almost look like I went there live. Let me just look and see if it's still there, because I just got to, maybe they canceled it. Oh, it's live.
From its proxy forces. During the attack, the U.S. military coordinated closely with the Israeli Defense Forces to help defend Israel. U.S. Navy destroyers deployed to the Middle East region supported the defense of Israel by firing approximately a dozen interceptors against the incoming Iranian missiles. Initial reports indicate that Israel was able to intercept the majority of incoming missiles and that there was minimal damage on the ground, but I'd refer you to Israel for confirmation, and any questions on that, is they're in a better position.
The mic is low. I can't do anything about it.
That we're still assessing the attack and the outcome, so numbers may change as we receive updates. Additionally, no U.S. personnel were injured or harmed during the Iranian missile attack. Secretary Austin, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General C.Q. Brown Jr., and U.S. Central Command Commander General Eric Kurilla have been in constant contact with President Biden and Vice President Harris throughout the day to consult on the situation and U.S. actions. In addition to his phone call earlier this morning with Israeli Minister of Defense Gallant prior to the Iranian attack, Secretary Austin spoke to the minister again just a short while ago to get an update. He reaffirmed the United States' ironclad commitment to the defense of Israel and underscored that the U.S. remains well-postured throughout the Middle East region to protect U.S. forces and defend Israel in the face of threats from Iran and Iran-backed terrorist organizations. We'll provide a readout of that call as soon as possible.
Major General Ryder,
To be crystal clear,
U.S. Air
as
Force.
Secretary Austin has said, should Iran, its partners, or its proxies use this moment to target American personnel or interests in the region, the United States will take every necessary measure to defend our people. And separately, I do have an update to provide on DoD support to Hurricane Helene response efforts, but I'll provide that at the end. With that, happy to take your questions. We'll start with AP. Tara.
Thanks, General Ryder. What Navy destroyers were involved in helping shoot down and intercept? And given this escalation, what's being communicated between Secretary Austin and Minister Gallant right now in terms of tampering things down and potentially avoiding a wider war?
Gosh, Chinook. Okay, got you, William.
So the two Navy destroyers involved were the USS Bulkley and the USS Cole. In terms of the conversations between Secretary Austin and Minister Gallant, I won't get into the private discussions other than to say we are consulting closely with them on next steps and the continued defense of Israel.
And then, are there any plans underway to conduct a NEO given the increased risk of a wider war?
Right now, there has been no order to evacuate. As you've heard us say before, we are a planning organization, so we, of course, plan for all contingencies.
Yep.
But as of right now, State Department has not called for an evacuation. Jennifer?
Should we assume that the SM-3s were used by the Cole and the Bulkley to shoot down or to intercept the missiles?
I'm not going to get into the specific type of ordnance,
Yep.
Jennifer, other than to say, again, they fired a dozen interceptors.
And Iran said that they gave a heads up to the U.S. and to Russia. How much warning were you given by Iran?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any pre-warning by Iran about their potential attack. As you know, this is something we've been following very closely for a while, based on the threats of retaliation by Iran. And so we've been closely consulting with Israel for a while now to be prepared in the eventuality. And as today demonstrated, we were prepared and we were able to successfully work alongside Israel to defend them from this attack. Let me go to Carla.
Thanks, Pat.
Good point, Twilight.
You said that the destroyers shot down Iranian missiles. Where did they come from? Were they all from inside Iran, or was some also from Yemen being shot by the Houthis?
Carla, to my knowledge, and again, we're still assessing this,
All from
these
Iran.
were all launched from Iran, ballistic missiles. And what I said was that they fired the interceptors towards those missiles. So.
And then were any other U.S. assets involved in this defense?
Of course, we have a lot of capability in the region, a lot of things that are there to be prepared for a wide variety of threats, but in terms of the launching of these interceptors, it was those 2 destroyers.
So just being clear, no ground-based interceptors were used in this. Were the any?
It's a good point.
Were you aware of any duds that didn't fire off, that maybe Iran wanted to fire more than the roughly 2?
Not to my knowledge,
As I
John.
mentioned, we're still assessing the outcome of the attack, and so we'll have much more information later. Our initial reports.
Thank you, Hazel Pony.
Call with the Secretary and Minister Talon. Did he urge Israel not to respond or to moderate any response to Iran, or did Gallant share any of Israeli intentions for their potential response here?
Well, again, as I'm sure you can appreciate, I'm just not going to be able to get into
The details.
of their
Yep.
call, other than to say, again, we're consulting closely about
Yep.
next steps.
That's correct.
And the continued defense of Israel.
What does Secretary Austin think about the potential for an Israeli response here? Would he urge them, without saying what he said in the call necessarily, but what are his feelings about the potential? Would he urge them restraint or?
Well, look, if you take a step back here, we fully support Israel's right to defend itself. You just saw a
South Africa doesn't.
Very significant
ANC, they should say.
attack by Iran against Israel, and so we'll continue to work alongside them to support their defense. We of course do not want to see a wider regional conflict. You've heard us say that many times, and we'll continue to work towards that end. But we also fully understand
Joint Staff Badge.
the fact that this was a significant attack.
And the other one's the Chairman's Badge.
We're going to continue to consult closely, and we're going to continue to support their defense. Let me go to Laura.
Thank you. Just a couple of clarifications. You say that the U.S. destroyers had intercepted or shot down the missiles, or just that they fired?
I said that they fired approximately a dozen interceptors against the incoming Iranian missiles.
And were there any U.S. aircraft that
No.
that shot interceptors at?
What I've read out is
What you're going to get.
stated in the defense.
That's what you're going to get.
And then, sorry, just one more. Can you say if there were any drones or cruise missiles that were?
No, there were none.
Again, still assessing it right now. It appears it was ballistic missiles, no drones, but again,
Yep.
we'll continue to assess. Let me go to Joseph and then we'll come here.
Just want to turn to the Israeli invasion in Lebanon. For the past couple of months, the department and the secretary have called for de-escalation. You guys have voiced your opposition to any.
The 2 lower badges down here are Joint Staff badges. One is the one you see. One side is Joint Staff badge, the other is Chairman's, and the one. Oof, thank you for the subscription there, Christian Russo. Russo. The badge on the top is an Air Force badge.
Israel is doing. So what changed for a change in that tone and that stance?
We're already in it, Theodoros.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, Joseph, is we.
Yes, there's a U.S. fleet off the coast.
Right to defend itself against Hezbollah. As we understand it, they will be conducting limited operations to destroy Hezbollah infrastructure that's arrayed along the border there that could be used to threaten Israeli citizens. And so we're continuing to consult with the Israelis to better understand how they intend to go forward. Obviously, I'd refer you to them to talk or ask questions about details regarding those operations. But we fully understand as part of their overall efforts to return people home.
No, it wasn't the
they need to
Patriot.
address those
These were
threats
ships
that
at
are along
sea.
the border there.
They don't carry
And
Patriots.
so, all that to say, we will continue
Good question,
to
Graham.
consult, with the Israelis and other partners in the region long term about how we
Thank
can
you for the super chat,
ultimately
Crocotopia.
de-escalate those tensions.
10 pounds. It doesn't come up yet.
Get to a ceasefire.
Have they asked for any help from you guys doing whatever it is that
No.
they want to do?
No. Yes, sir.
Were the United States surprised by the scale of the Iranian attack on Israel?
No.
Well, look, like I said before, we've been monitoring this for a while. Iran had been very public about its threats to retaliate, and so it's something that we've been monitoring. Certainly, this was a significant attack, probably about twice the
It's an
the
act of
size
war.
in terms of scope of what we saw earlier.
Crime against humanity.
But again, we're still assessing the outcomes of this.
Spiker-Horn,
And it's
Iran
obviously
launched
top
200
certainly
ballistic
that
missiles on Israel
attack,
cities.
This direct attack against Israel, and we'll continue to support Israel's defense.
Several Israeli media spoke about a response tonight, Israeli response tonight to this attack. including some, not just Iran, some other Middle Eastern countries, will the United States
Yes, some of them.
the Israelis in their response?
Well, I'm not going to speculate about hypotheticals. I'd refer you to the Israelis to talk about.
It's not his role. It's a diplomatic
Will
issue.
the Americans help them with their
Well, what you're asking me is if they're going to do something, and what I'm saying is I'm not going to speculate about what or
Correct.
if they may do.
This guy's
As
good.
I highlighted to several of your colleagues.
General Ryder,
we're
smart.
working closely with the Israelis in terms of next
He's wearing a
steps,
G-Shock watch.
with the emphasis being the defense of Israel. So let me go to this side of the room.
He's a smart guy.
Essentially, a follow-up to that question: is the U.S. willing to strike Iran in response to this? Are you putting that on or off?
That's not his place to answer.
Well, look, Garnett, again, I don't want to get into hypotheticals. I think I was very clear at the top that should U.S. forces be targeted by Iran or its proxies, we'll take necessary steps to defend our people. And I think we've also been very clear that we're going to support the defense of Israel. And so I'm not going to get into theoretical or speculative operations at this stage, other than to say, we mean what we say and we say what we mean.
Iran claims to have used a new Fatah missile, which is supposed to be a hypersonic ballistic missile. Can you assess whether they did use?
Not going to disclose that at this stage.
New and advanced weaponry in this attack, and whether they learned from the April attack?
Again, we're still assessing the attack and the outcomes, and so we may have more to provide later, but I don't have anything on that right now. Dan.
Thanks for your time. Two questions, please. On Secretary Austin's statement last night, he referred to being supportive of operations along the border. Is he open to Israel using operations on both sides of the border? Along the border was a little vague there.
That is a little vague.
I think I'd go back to how I responded to Joseph, right? We understand and support Israel's right to defend itself against Hezbollah, as we highlighted in the readout. We understand that part of that is dismantling some of the attack infrastructure that Hezbollah has built along the border. Certainly, again, we don't want to see this, broaden into a wider regional
escalate
conflict, but we understand again that what Israel is doing are limited operations to destroy that attack infrastructure, and then enable citizens on both sides of the border to return home. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we do think that a diplomatic resolution is the only way to achieve lasting stability and security across the Israel-Lebanon border. So, we're going to continue to work to that end, but we also, again, understand Israel's need to defend itself.
And then a follow. The State Department read out a report on.
No, it's not limited anymore.
A diplomatic facility at Baghdad Airport last night. Have you seen any other attacks on U.S. forces, I guess, since Friday? This one would seem to be on a diplomatic facility, but be it...
Yes, well, if General Ryder's pretty polished.
Heightened time of tension, or just broadly over the last couple of days?
Yeah, as of right now, I'm not aware of any additional attacks. Thanks. Sir.
The Iron Dome, how effective is it against ballistic missiles? And some of the televised images appeared to show some of them landing on infrastructure. Are you aware of that? In general, was this attack more effective than the Iranian attack in April?
Again, understanding that a lot is still, very initial. As I highlighted, initial indications are that there was minimal damage on the ground. In terms of the specifics, though, I'd have to refer you to Israel really to talk through that. And again, as more information comes in, we'll certainly know more. But the initial assessment is that Israel was able to successfully defend itself, of course, with the support from the U.S. And so, again, we may have more later on that. Helene?
Thanks, Pat. I just want to
Gulf Stream nearby.
It seems like we're at a very dangerous time where any kind of ambiguity from the U.S. could lead to an attack on American troops. And when you say I understand when you say that we're going to defend any attack on American troops. I also understand that that you said
she
that
sounds
no
like an
American
idiot.
troops were hurt. Therefore, are you saying the U.S. is not planning on a kinetic strike against Iran?
Can't answer that question.
You say there will be consequences. All of that you're leaving is vague, and people don't understand that.
Well, too bad. It's none of your damn business, you moron.
Joining Israel in hitting back.
Gee, many crickets.
In a kinetic manner.
Yeah, so with all due respect, you're talking about a hypothetical future, right, and presupposing what Israel may or may not do. So I'm just not going to talk about
consequences, and Jake Sullivan said there will be consequences.
If they attack U.S.
And
troops,
I think
dipshit.
Broadly speaking, the U.S. has been clear that there will be security, economic consequences should Iran attack, but I just don't have anything to preview, specifically as it relates.
She's an idiot.
Right. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Pat. Just to clarify, did any U.S. aircraft track any of the missiles either before the launch or during the attack?
Don't disclose that. Methods and sources. That's an intel question. Nope.
So I won't go into specifics,
Thank you.
Chris, other than to say, as you well know, we have a wide variety of ISR capabilities throughout the region to monitor and track potential aerial threats, to include aircraft that do that. So I'll just leave it there. Okay.
Good answer.
Thank you, General. I know you said repeatedly that Iran doesn't telegraph these attacks, yet from early this morning we were told that an attack would be imminent. So
Yep.
we're getting some sort of information from somewhere.
From U.S.
Based
intelligence,
on whatever
dumbass.
that was based on, where does Iran stand now? Is this just the first salvo? From your assessment, are they positioned to go ahead and pull the trigger again at will?
I mean, that's really
That's a good question.
for Iran.
Well, do they have more resources is the question.
They certainly maintain the capability to conduct additional attacks. As I highlighted at the top,
He's not disclosing.
Calling them to halt any further attacks, and we'll continue to assess. We'll also continue to be prepared to respond in the defense of Israel should they opt to do another one. We certainly hope that they do not, but we obviously have to be prepared in that eventuality.
I just want to clarify, I think you said earlier this is twice the size and scope from the attack of April 13th?
Correct.
Yeah, it's about twice as large in terms of the number of ballistic missiles that they launched from the last.
Was their intent to actually do damage this time?
Well, look,
of course.
You don't launch that many missiles at a target without the intent of hitting something. So
Exactly.
absolutely.
It's a dumbass question.
Like
These
the
people are
last
actually reporters.
Their intent is to,
Good God. Get someone like me in there.
destruction. And so, fortunately, Israel has very significant air defense capabilities, and the U.S., of course, played a role in helping on that front as well. Thank you. Matt?
Thanks, Pat. You said there have been no new attacks on U.S. forces in the region, but is the department tracking a greater threat now to U.S. forces, and are you taking any extra measures on top of the recent plus-ups you've done for force protection?
Well, Matt, I mean, as you know, we're always taking force protection very seriously. We're all very well aware of the heightened tensions in the region, and U.S. Central Command has been, for a long time now, constantly assessing and reassessing the threat to ensure that our forces are protected. Like I mentioned, I'm not aware, as I come to the podium, I'm not aware of any additional attacks beyond the one that Dan mentioned, but it's something that we'll obviously be keeping a close eye on to protect our forces.
Secondly, were there any other nations other than the United States and Israel who took part in intercepting missiles or helping to track them or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't have anything to provide on that, and obviously I wouldn't speak for other.
He's got it. He's right.
I'd like to ask you if you guys talk to the European allies and if you ask for military support in protecting.
Okay, that's a dumb question. I'm going to preempt it. So Helen has asked me a question. What question would I ask? Well, the question I would ask about this is, well, I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask, but it's just kind of slipped my mind there for a moment. But the question that needs to be asked here is the following. With the United States firing missiles from ships at sea against Iran's missiles, have we not entered a de facto state of war with Iran? That's the first question. The follow-up question is the president aware, this is a cheeky question, he wouldn't answer this, is the president aware that we fired missiles in Iran?
Get in trouble, task and purpose, Jeff Shoulders.
Thank you. I understand that the destroyers fired about a dozen interceptors. Did they hit any of the missiles? If so, how many?
I'm not going to answer that question.
So again, we're as you highlight, they fired the interceptors. We're still assessing again, outcomes of that, so I can't really.
He has 25 ribbons. It's impressive. I have 24.
Okay,
I think.
We go to Heather from USNI.
Hi, thank you so much. So you mentioned that the United States has the
This is over Zoom.
ability and intent to respond if any of its service members are attacked. Over on Friday, you had 2 U.S. destroyers and a LCS come under attack from the Houthis. Which is an Iranian proxy group. So would that give, is there any intention to launch any attacks in response to those service members coming under attack?
Yeah, good point.
Well, first of all, Heather, as you are aware, there were no U.S. service members injured in any of those attacks. And as always, we will respond appropriately at a time and place of our choosing. But I'm not going to telegraph or speculate on any
Well stated.
punches at this time. All right, and Patrick Tucker, Defense One.
Hey, thanks for doing this. So on the announcement of 3 additional aircraft squadrons, F-15s, F-16s, A-10s, I presume that they weren't involved in any of the interception activity. Can you talk a little bit about why they're there and what role they might fill now in terms of enhancing security for U.S. forces in the region?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we've been highlighting for a while, we have a robust amount of capability in the Central Command and U.S. European Command regions. And what those capabilities provide us is versatility in terms of responding to a variety of contingencies. And so, basically having the right tools in the toolkit to be able to respond appropriately to any type of attack or contingency situation. And so, as you well know, Pat, fighter aircraft can perform a variety of missions to include taking down drones, taking down missiles,
aircraft,
particular kinds of missiles, as well as providing ISR, electronic warfare, and types of capabilities. So all of this comes together to provide us with options on how best to respond to any type of attack and to protect our forces. Let me come back to the room here. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, General. First, on Iran, after today's attack and the
Who are all these foreigners at the Pentagon?
Israel, is the assessment at the Pentagon still that the situation in the Middle East still under control and we're not in all-out war yet? And the second question on Lebanon, excuse me, what's your understanding to what Israel is calling limited ground operations or incursion? Is it limited by, in time, in scope? How do you see this?
Sure.
Yeah, that's a question for Israel to answer for the IDF. So Spiker said, remember whose kids die in service and these rich bastards play the chessboards. Well, Spiker, I would respond to that by saying that General Ryder, I don't know his personal background, but like most of our military officers, come from middle class or lower income families, not from wealthy families. Most of us who become commissioned officers in the military aren't from the elite in this country. There are exceptions. There are legacies who are the offspring of past generals. And the Army has a program to make sure those people become generals. They really do. It's called the Legacy Program. But the vast majority of us are middle class or lower income folks who strive to achieve something in life and are committed to defending American liberties and freedoms and protecting the world from chaos. We take an oath to support and defend the Constitution. And I seriously doubt that General Ryder is one of these rich people that sends kids off to their death. I appreciate the sentiment, but you need to talk about politicians doing that, not the military. In every single briefing I've ever been in with the State Department, with people from the White House, with the National Security Council, on every single occasion, the voice of reason in every room has always been someone in uniform. Whether it was me or a general or someone else, the voice of reason when civilians are calling for bloodshed and slaughter of people, the voice of reason every single time is someone in uniform.
Small questions. One is, why weren't land-based air defenses used? And did you find that you had, did the United States have fewer partners in trying to knock down these Iranian missiles this time than it did in April?
I would compare it to a pallet. Phil, you're going to use the capability that you need to respond to a particular situation. So, as evidenced by the fact that our forces were able to so quickly support Israel's defense, we have a wide range of capabilities arrayed to be able to respond to whatever those threats may be in the most appropriate way possible. So it's less about the platform and it's more about the capability. Again, we still maintain a robust capability to be able to respond to any potential future threats as well.
And I just want to follow up on what Aline was asking, which was important in the sense, I think you said a red line that if Iran or its forces were to attack U.S. troops, there would be a U.S. response against Iran. At least that's what it sounded like you were saying. Is that correct?
What I said is it should be very clear that if Iran or its proxies use this as an opportunity to attack U.S. forces, we will respond.
This is the fourth time they tried to trip him up on that statement. He's been clear. Last question.
Thanks, Matt. I just wanted to clarify a few things that you said. In terms of Iran's capabilities going forward, is it clear from the U.S. side that the imminent risk is over of another attack?
No, Netanyahu's brother was on the raid in Tibet.
It's something we're going to keep an eye on. We certainly hope that there's not another attack, but obviously Iran maintains a capability, and it's just demonstrated that they're willing to use it to directly attack Israel. And so we're going to continue to consult closely with Israel on next steps, and importantly on the defense of Israel. So.
Israel's limited incursion, have they provided any sort of a timeline on how long they would stay there?
I'd refer you to
Israel. Yep.
I don't think it'd be
talk to Israel.
For me to talk about that. Hey, folks. While there's been an understandable focus today on the Middle East, before we
now I want to talk about the Hurricane Helene.
On a topic closer to home as DoD continues to work with.
Now this is how a briefing is done. Watch this. Not what Karine Jean-Pierre did. Ready? This is what DoD does. Listen.
As of this morning, the department has more than 6,500 service members actively engaged in relief efforts across 6 states. Florida has nearly 3,500 guardsmen activated, and Georgia has around 1,400 guardsmen on duty. South Carolina has activated nearly 500 guardsmen, along with 2 helicopters for their recovery efforts. Tennessee has around 130 guardsmen and 7 helicopters activated, and Virginia has activated nearly 60 guardsmen, along with 1 helicopter and numerous high-water vehicles. Additionally, since the storm passed, North Carolina has emerged as an area of particular focus after the historic level
yes, Pablo,
of
Charlie.
that occurred in the western part of that state. A multi-state, multi-agency effort is currently underway with more than 80 guardsmen and 13 helicopters from Connecticut, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Ohio, New York, South Carolina, and Florida joining more than 800 North Carolina guardsmen in providing support to devastated North Carolina communities. U.S. Northern Command is also providing active duty support efforts to FEMA, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is providing emergency power planning and response teams to Georgia, as well as dam, levee, and bridge inspection to Tennessee and Kentucky, and temporary power to North Carolina. For further questions about National Guard missions, I would encourage you to contact the specific states in questions, and for active duty support efforts to FEMA, U.S. Northern Command is standing by. For service-specific evacuation efforts, it's best to contact the services directly. As the DoD continues to aid response efforts, Secretary Austin and department leaders will continue to be engaged and stay in close contact with federal, state, and local officials to ensure resources are available and to maximize a coordinated response. And in the days ahead, the department will continue to keep our fellow Americans who've been impacted by this devastation in our thoughts. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right, folks. Now that's a professional briefing right there. That's how you do it. Give that message out to Karine Jean-Pierre and the clowns. She's in the White House, but the clowns over at the State Department. That is how you do a press briefing. That's a proper one there. Well done by Major General Ryder. Let me summarize the events as we know them today, folks. We've got another briefing going on. Who's this now?
It said that report was quite clear.
That's the State Department.
And that there were a number of steps that Israel had taken or
State
not
Department
taken
briefing
that had led to the hindrance of humanitarian aid being delivered to Gaza, and that we were quite concerned about those steps. But in the meantime, they had implemented a number of additional measures that we had recommended to them to improve the delivery of humanitarian assistance. And it is that we were quite looking at all of those factors together. In the meantime, they had implemented
about this from the NSM, but if you were going to look to parts of the U.S. government to tell you on the specific question of whether a country is blocking the delivery of humanitarian aid, wouldn't you look to USAID and PRM in this building? Aren't they exactly the two parts of the government that you would ask that question?
So I would look to them. I would also look to our experts in the region, our experts in the bureaus that cover the region, as well as other U.S. government agencies. And that's what we did.
Feed.
And without speaking to the recommendation of any individual.
Let me reload it and see if it's my feed or State Department. It's the State Department feed. It's off center and it's got some noise in it.
Agency, because it wouldn't be appropriate.
Sorry for that.
The Secretary got conflicting recommendations and had to resolve those.
Doesn't it suggest, and isn't the Secretary's decision based on recommendations? He's taken the expert recommendation on that specific humanitarian question and considered it looking at the political and strategic other influences and made a decision. But the actual technical advice from the two agencies involved in that specifically was that they are blocking it.
So this is not a comment about the question, but it is a comment about some of the criticism that the Secretary has received. One of the things that I have found over the years in government is when there are conflicting reports, the side that had the opinion that you agreed with was the expert side, and the other side was a bunch of political hacks. And that is always the way that people interpret these. We look at it as all of these officials who made recommendations had expertise, and the Secretary valued all of their expertise equally.
Spiker Hond, what does Boeing have to do with the conversation? It was a spokesman from the Department of Defense talking about U.S. DoD actions in response to Iran's attack on Israel. Now the State Department is talking in this gobbledygook nonsense. What does that have to do with Boeing? We talked about Boeing repeatedly in the news stream, but you weren't there. Sorry.
And the report's language reflected all of that. We were quite transparent about how we had seen the situation change over time.
Well, wait a second. I don't understand how you can say the Secretary valued all their expertise equally when he rejected the side that...
So you can value someone's expertise and still disagree with, I value very much your reporting, Matt. I disagree with some of the stories that you write. You can value,
first of all, I question that.
You can value someone's expertise and still disagree
yes, it is
with their
meaningful
recommendations when you have conflicting information.
Wait, so there was conflicting information?
You had conflicting assessments from different bureaus inside the department.
Okay, but assessments were based on facts on the ground, right?
They were based on...
Right?
They were...
What was happening on the ground?
Based on available information.
So unless one of these two bureaus just got it wrong and didn't, then they were giving their...
No. It is,
their assessment
Boeing doesn't do Patriots.
No,
Raytheon does Patriots, Spiker. You've got to get your facts.
How facts changed over time, which is one of the things we laid out in the report, that if you looked at the actions by the government of Israel, and as important as actions at time inaction, things that we had recommended they do that they didn't take, we concluded that some of the actions they took and some of the inactions, things that they hadn't done, had led to a slowdown in delivery of humanitarian assistance. But we had intervened with them, and they had taken a number of meaningful steps in another direction that led us to make the assessment that we did.
To the point where now everything is just fine.
As I said, it is an ongoing assessment, and we constantly see deficiencies that we try to alleviate. The situation is nowhere close to fine. Yeah.
On the Israeli raids into Lebanon, just first of all, I mean, do you have any updates on your assessment of what's happening in the ground, if these remain limited as has been described?
So as of today, we have continued to see limited targeted raids. I won't speak to the future, but that's what we've seen as of this point.
And I think the Israelis have spoken about these going back some way in time as well, actually. Is that your understanding that they have been, they were going on to well before?
I think with that level of detail, I should, about a military operation, I should defer to them to speak.
Okay, and you talked about this combination of deterrence and diplomacy, so and you're going to be consulting with the Israelis in terms of the response to Iran. Are both of those things that you're talking about important in your discussions with the Israelis now, both deterrence and diplomacy?
Of course, they always are.
Okay, and on the point about, I just wanted to get you to reflect on where you were at last week at the United Nations, a joint call with a number of countries urging restraint, de-escalation, a 21-day truce. where we are now and what we've just seen happening in the region, when you reflect on sort of what has changed or what went wrong, if I can put it like that, for your own strategic position, what is the reason behind the complete difference in what you were aspiring to last week and where we're at now?
So nothing has changed in what we're aspiring to. We continue to see, a ceasefire.
Whoops. Well, the feed has died. State Department feed has died. Looky there, folks. Looky there. Let me turn that off for a moment. Wow, they've just. Well, he's back. He's back.
Stop them from launching these rocket attacks.
Oh, they fixed it finally.
Israeli civilians, and as I said in response to Heba's question, to try to degrade what has been a destabilizing force for Lebanon and the Lebanese.
We can't even do a live stream from the State Department.
Actions, but long term, ultimately, we do want to see a diplomatic resolution, and that starts with a ceasefire, and we're continuing to pursue that with Israel and our partners in the region.
And when you said just finally that, I think, which I don't think I've heard you say before, but you described Israel as expanding the conflict in these actions, and you also then said that you talked about the death of Nasrallah, and perhaps we're also alluding to Haniya, I don't know, but
no, this is State Department.
When you said that terrorists are killed, it doesn't mean we always agree with the way they do it. Is that something you'd apply to either of these cases?
It's not a comment I'm going to make with any specific for any specific strike, because as we've gotten into a number of times, there are when it comes to those types of assessments, a number of factors we have to consider. But I think it's true when you look at any government that launches military operations, we might look at it sometimes and come to different decisions, either for tactical reasons or strategic ones. Jillian, go ahead.
The Secretary's op-ed in Foreign Affairs today, he writes, the Biden administration's about the Middle East. The strategy has put the U.S. in a much stronger geopolitical position today than it was 4 years ago, given what you've just laid out, all the encouragement from the U.S. towards Iran not to launch, escalatory strikes. It seems unfortunate timing.
No, I think when you look at the position that the United States was in when President Biden took office, we were on the defensive around the world.
No,
the United
we weren't.
States had squandered alliances, partnerships, friendships.
Lies.
Propagandists. Were pulling back in our engagements in Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East. People didn't know whether they could count on the United States or not. And what the Secretary lays out in that article, which I do commend to everyone's readership, is the series of steps that we have taken around the world to rebuild those alliances and partnerships, to confront powers who have a different vision of the world than we do. And I'll also note that one of the things the Secretary always hears in his travels through the Middle East, and I've witnessed this firsthand, is countries in the region welcoming U.S. engagement, wanting to see continued U.S. engagement, and oftentimes saying you are the only country that can play this diplomatic role. There's no other country in the region or the world that can play a role in trying to de-escalate this conflict, and so they want us to stay at it, and we'll continue to stay at it.
So then why wasn't the U.S., the Biden administration, able to dissuade Iran from launching today's attack?
Look, I think Iran has has funded terrorist groups, has launched attacks on interests in the region going back decades. If you look at what happened in under the previous administration's watch, Iran launched missile attacks directly at U.S. soldiers that led to traumatic brain injuries for more than 100 U.S. soldiers. So Iran has been a destabilizing force going back years, including during the previous administration. What we will do is continue to hold them accountable.
Obsessed with Trump.
Let me take one more, and then I'm going to wrap for today.
On the question about the partners that you don't want to name, last time you did talk about coalition of countries you put together, the UK, the Gulf countries, Jordan. The fact that we are not hearing about the same coalition, is it because of the lack of timing to get all the ducks in a row?
Let me get a picture of him.
I just don't want to say any more about the partners that we engage, other than they should speak for themselves.
Could you say whether it's larger or smaller or the same size?
I just can't speak to it at all.
I also have a hard time understanding your definition of what's happening today. You said that Iran is defending the terrorist organization by attacking another country with ballistic missiles without any warning. If this is not an act of war, then what is it?
So
it is an act of war.
Go back to what I said today, which is Israel, with help from the United States and partners, was able to defeat this attack. and we're going to consult with them on the days forward. Let me go to Nike. I said that'd be last, but Nike one more, and then I have some closing comments.
Thank you.
Closing
so
comments.
on Afghanistan quickly, we saw the statement regarding Tom West's transition from the Special Representative for Afghanistan to Office on Sanctions Coordination. What does this mean for U.S. policy toward Afghanistan? Is Afghanistan a U.S. foreign policy priority?
Of course it is, and we will continue to stay engaged on Afghanistan. It remains an enduring priority. The work will now be led in the State Department by the Chief of Mission of the U.S. Mission to Afghanistan, Karen Decker, Special Envoy Amiri, and Ambassador John Mark Palmersheim.
As the ambassador.
And then if you'll bear with me for one moment, because there were comments that I wanted to make at the top that I wasn't able to have.
Here's Weasel Boy's comments.
Announcement. We are pleased to announce that as of today, the daily press briefings at the Department of State will include American Sign Language interpretation. This is in addition to the live captioning we provide online. The team of daily press briefing interpreters includes certified deaf interpreters, ensuring more accurate, nuanced interpretation for the deaf and hard of.
All right, that's enough of the woke Weasel Boy from the Department of State. I'm going to end that there, and I'm going to get you guys up to date with where we're at. This is beyond the pale what has happened today. Iran launched a ballistic missile attack against Israeli civilians, targeting millions of civilians in a crime against humanity, in an unprovoked declaration of war. In essence, the United States has refused to recognize it as a declaration of war, despite the fact that Joe Biden has led us into the conflict as a co-belligerent by firing missiles from sea-launched at these attack missiles. So we are now part of this conflict. We are involved in the conflict. These clowns, I have to say that the White House was very disappointing. Jake Sullivan came out, basically answered no questions, said nothing of value. It has now been about 5 hours since these attacks have occurred, and no one knows where Joe Biden is at. No one knows where Kamala Harris is at. Someone tweeted out something on behalf of both of them. We are told they're in the Situation Room. Doing what? Eating Hot Pockets? Ooh, they're breathtaking Hot Pockets, as Austin Powers would say. Have you tried the Hot Pockets? They're breathtaking. I don't know what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are up to, but it's clearly not defending this nation or looking out for its interest. The only person of any substance who had anything useful to say, who did their job, was Major General Ryder, Air Force General on the Joint Staff, who came out and spoke as the DoD spokesperson and said what he could say and professionally answered the questions he could not answer. Idiotic reporters asking moronic questions is about sources and methods, about tactics and operational considerations that we cannot share. They're dumb as a box of rocks. Why doesn't the Pentagon have accomplished, successful military journalists who actually go into the room and ask real questions instead of the idiotic drivel that these morons ask? So, Iran, facilitated and enriched by Barack Hussein Obama, a traitor to America, and Joe Biden, another traitor to America, who gave Iran hundreds of billions of dollars. And then Joe Biden, on top of that, gave them a windfall from oil profits from his feckless foreign policy, his cowardly withdrawal from Afghanistan, his frightening message he sent to the energy markets, and his hyperinflation that he's caused around the globe, all of which led to massive windfall profits for the Iranian state regime, all of which are now being used to target Israel and innocent civilians. Anyway, so there you have it, folks. That's the situation today. I wanted to bring you the press conference, and we were promised a press conference from the White House, the Department of Defense, and the State Department, a joint press conference. What we got instead was the daily press conference from Karine Jean-Pierre, America's favorite Haitian lesbian. We got her press conference, chief propagandist, the granddaughter of Joseph Goebbels, Karine Jean-Pierre, standing out there and telling us nonsense, and then introducing. But before that, Jake Sullivan came out and spoke for 3 minutes and was done and dusted and gone. That was it. That's all we're talking about. Then Karine Jean-Pierre comes out and tells us what a great, wonderful job the Biden regime is doing, followed by Alejandro Mayorkas, the Cyril Ramaphosa light tan imitation, giving his boring nonsense and lies about what his government is doing. And then, of course, we had Karine Jean-Pierre come out. That is not a joint press conference between DoD, the White House, and the Pentagon. We expected to see Joe Biden, at a minimum, along with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of State. None of those people made an appearance today. The United States leadership is corrupt, it's inept, it's cowardly, it's non-existent. We are in a perilous state of global security, and we are being run by kleptocratic, lying, leftist pieces of human filth who don't even have the courage to stand in front of the podium to answer questions to the world. The foreign policy of the Biden regime has failed over and over and over again, and led the Middle East into the precipice of conflagration, end of days, carnage is on the horizon because of their ineptitude and their corruption. We had the Abraham Accords. We have peace in the Middle East. We had peace all over the world. Donald Trump, this paid shill from the State Department, this little weasel boy who came out and said that, well, the secretary says we're in a better position in the Middle East today than we were 3 years ago. Are you high? Are you brain dead? Are you stupid? Are you a moron? And people actually believe this nonsense. They listen to, oh, yes. No, we're not. No, we're not. Israel was not at war with Gaza. Israel was not fighting a war with Hezbollah. Israel was not being attacked by the Houthis. Israel made peace with Morocco, with the United Arab Emirates, with Sudan. The greatest peace accord in the history of the Middle East, the Abraham Accords, negotiated by Jared Kushner and Donald Trump. And they've completely forgotten about it. The good news is that those states still have relations with Israel, but they're being strained by this nonsense. Wow. We still hear endless stories about the Camp David Accords and the peace that Jimmy Carter negotiated between Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat. And that deserves a lot of credit. But, 44 years later, why don't we focus on the Abraham Accords, which have been eviscerated? And Blinken having the audacity to tell us the world's at peace? Dude, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, Somalia, Sudan, Mozambique, the Central African Republic, the Congo, Myanmar, Ukraine, Gaza, the Bekaa Valley, Yemen. What are you talking about? The world's at peace. The world is better off than when Donald Trump was president. You are a lunatic. You are a liar. And people buy this stuff up. It's not rocket science to figure out. It's actually simply factual information that's out there. We are living in 1984. Some pigs are better than others. This is the rule of the apparatchiks over common sense. Truth doesn't matter, folks. The truth doesn't matter. When you hear people say, my truth, there's no such thing as your truth. There is truth. There is objective truth. There are facts. You can twist the data around and you can say, well, look, we were 7% successful, but you're 93% unsuccessful. You can do that, but it doesn't change the fact that you were 7% successful and 93% unsuccessful. Always great to hear your perspective on these kind of issues. This is what happens. The U.S. has a muppet for a president. The world can't afford to have a weak president. Exactly right. Exactly what we have. We have a muppet. We have someone with their hand up his rectum, pulling the things and pulling the fingers around. Unbelievable. Those Houthi balls of steel, once they, what's this? Someone get Jean-Pierre some, oh, slippery pickle. Jam on you. Pablo Charlie says, I can't even comment. Gabrielle says, thank you, Chris. World Economic Forum knows their intentions under the tables manipulate conservatives while them playing into the hands of the enemy. The World Economic Forum manipulating me as a conservative? I don't think so. Some people never seem to disappoint. You're right, Francois. I assume you're talking about the speakers. Gus, thank you. There were no wars under Donald Trump and actual peace in the Middle East. Correct, Indy. That's correct. That's what I just said. I'm catching back up on the chat now. Yeah. And if they hadn't funded Iran, see, where is the media? Why is the media not coming out? That journalist there with the bleachy red hair, kind of good looking there, hair, she actually asked the question in the State Department. Hey, you say that the secretary's released an op-ed saying what great, and this is wrong. The Secretary of State issues an op-ed to be published in a press release using State Department of resources to campaign for Kamala Harris. What is the purpose of putting out a letter when you're still serving as Secretary of State, talking about what a great and wonderful job the administration has done in foreign policy in the Middle East? Why in the world would you do that except to violate federal law, the Logan Amendment? You can't do that. That's a political campaign while serving in an office for the government. You cannot do that. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The Logan Act. Yes, the Logan Act. Logan Act, United States federal law that criminalizes negotiation. Oh, let's dispute. Well, there's more. Okay. No, okay. I'm misspeaking. Not the Logan Act. What is it? Shoot. I misspoke. I said Logan Act. Yeah, it's not the Logan Act. What is it? Political. No partisan political activity while on duty in a federal facility, wearing uniform, official insignia, using government. Yeah, the Hatch Act. That's the thing. Hatch Act. That's what I was looking for, the Hatch Act. This is the violation of the Hatch Act. This is a violation of the Hatch Act. Unbelievable. Sorry, Logan Act is something else. Someone else get it to Hatch Act. There's actually a federal law on this. Yep. Active participation in political management or partisan political campaigns, even off duty. Cannot do it. Cannot do it. Hatch Act prohibits it. It is illegal to campaign for or against candidates in partisan elections. And that is exactly what the Secretary of State has just done. He should be impeached for violating the Hatch Act. Yep. Jeff Dunham. So I'll go back to Ryan releasing. Yep, that's right. The money. Media's in someone's sitting room on the shelf. Yep. What did Hendo say? Muppet, puppet, Biden, and Kamala. There you go. Yep. No, the Hatch Act is being violated here. Yep. Yep, he's a restricted employee. Less restricted employees can do that, but you cannot do that as a restricted employee. May not post a comment to a blog or social media site advocating for or against a partisan political party. And that's exactly what the Secretary of State has done. He's advocated for Kamala Harris with a lie. You can write a book when you're done and talk about how successful you were, and nobody will buy it because it's a lie, but you are simply a bold-faced liar. I'm sorry. That's the facts. Get over it. That's the facts. Take a, what's this? Take a purse, probably taught American media self-salesman. I have no idea what that is. No idea what this is. Thank you, the Hatch Act. Thank you, Hendo. It's the Hatch Act I was looking for. So this briefing is over. So they're still showing the briefing over and over again on Fox News. I'm going to get rid of that. We don't need to see it anymore. Anyway, yeah, we already got rid of Ben Shapiro from earlier. So, wow. Just unbelievable, folks, what is going on here in our government with the corrupt Biden-Harris regime, misusing state resources to campaign, violating federal election law, the Hatch Act, all kinds of things. Any load shedding in the U.S.? No, we don't have any load sheddings, but we do have people in the southeast United States who are suffering for no electricity as a consequence of storms. Times Now YouTube channel. What about that, Charles? Oh, he's on Times Now? Okay. Times Now. Come on, come on. Well, I've got an advert, so we'll see. Okay.
So I want to make that statement because we are under threat. I have been threatened very directly, and I appreciate the agencies that we've been meeting with, but we've been threatened very directly by Iran. And I think you have to let them know, because the best way to do it is through the office of the president, that you do any attacks on former presidents or candidates for president, your country gets blown to smithereens, as we say. 41 days from now, we are going to win the state of North Carolina.
I can't show that one, folks, because I'll probably get a copyright claim. So let me just see if the RSTB, RSTB. They won't give me a copyright strike because they're a real network. Nice guys. Where are they at? There's Fox News. Are they hidden now? What is the network? I keep forgetting. It's RSTB or whatever the heck they're called. Every other time they show up, but now they're not showing me. They're not showing me that. Yeah, so RSBN. Thank you, RSBN. That's what I'm looking for. God bless it. Right Side Broadcasting Network. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, yeah, they've got Trump. I'll go with them because they're decent.
Do again? Would you do it? Because I did. I had the greatest life. I have the most beautiful properties in the world. I really believe I do. But I have the most beautiful. I could have had the greatest, nicest life. None of this stuff. Would you do it again? Absolutely, I would do, because we're doing something this special. It's not even close. It's not even close, right? It's not even close. Not even close. I could have been right now in Monte Carlo. But I'd rather be in Wisconsin, if you want to know. It's true. It's true. You know, honestly, there are a lot of rich guys that are in different places. But there's only one MAGA. There's only one group.
Brendan, it's because Israel took out the leader of Hezbollah, and so this is retaliation for that.
This is the greatest movement in the history of our country, and we're going to prove it again. We're going to prove it again on November 5th. It really is. It's the greatest. And I have to be very careful when I talk, because the fake news, if I say something wrong, a little wrong, if I'm 3% off, they'll do headlines. They'll give me Pinocchios, the Pinocchio. The Washington Post, they give you Pinocchios. If you say something perfectly, they give you a Pinocchio. They always find a reason. But if I say anything a little bit out of order, they say, so I have to be very careful. But I will tell you, we're going to do so great with this country, and we're going to bring it back. But MAGA is the greatest movement in the history of our country. There's never been anything wrong. You've had some great people. Remember Pat Buchanan, and I think he came in second to New Hampshire. He's a great guy, conservative guy, wonderful guy. I watched him for years and years, and he had a career in coming in second in New Hampshire, I think it was. Right? He came in second, and we won Iowa, we won New Hampshire, we won South Carolina, we won everything, and then we went on to win the election. There's never been anything like this. We won 32 states, and then we did better the second time, but we're going to do better than we ever did this time. I think we're going to do better than we ever did. And I don't take day offs. They all say, are you planning any days off, sir? What would your days off be? I say, I'm not taking days off. We have 33 days. I'm out every day. I'm scheduled every single day.
Yep.
I'm not taking days off because we can't. We can't take days off. We have to work. And I've been working a lot of days in a row. I don't know what it is, but we're all over the place. I think we're going to Texas tonight or tomorrow. I don't even ask anymore. I get on the plane. I say, what's my next stop? Sir, tonight we're going to Texas. Congratulations, and we're winning big in Texas, I'll tell you. We're winning big in Texas. 3 days ago, I was in the small town of Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin.
Yep.
We're an illegal alien member of a savage Venezuelan prison gang from Kamala who let them into the country. And this vicious savage was arrested this month. Good law enforcement up there. I mean, I got to meet the whole...
All right, I'm not going to cover all of Trump's rally. Thanks for the heads up on that, folks, but I appreciate it. But this was about talking about Iran. He's not talking about Iran anymore. We've covered the Jake Sullivan 3 minutes. We barely had time to get him on camera before he was off camera. And then a little bit of Karine Jean-Pierre and Mayorkas until we waited for the Department of Defense Pentagon briefing. We got that from Major General Ryder. That was the most effective and informative of them. Then we listened to that little weasel from the State Department telling lies. Anyway, that's going to do it for this. I've got to come back on live tonight at 9 o'clock to do the debate, mostly because I'm on the radio tomorrow night, and I need to actually have watched the debate in order to comment about it tomorrow night. So I'll be back later tonight, 9 p.m. on @RealChrisWyatt, not this channel, but the original, which now has memberships available, folks. You can join me on the original channel for that. I'll put that in the groups later on. But if you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning in South Africa, you can tune in. Otherwise, watch it tomorrow. And if you're here in the U.S., you can watch it 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks, everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Thank you all for being here. I do appreciate your support for the channel, and we are very grateful. All right, 9 p.m. is in 5 hours. That is correct. Yep, that is correct. All right, I'll see you guys later. The biggest thing I expect to see out of this is whether little Timmy Waltz's false honor is exposed and how partisan the so-called journalists are who ask the questions. All right, so we'll see what happens. But either way, no matter who wins this debate, it's not going to move the needle. The storm in the southern states, the failure of the Biden regime to respond with any alacrity. Now they claim they're doing big responses. They had a faster response in Katrina, and look how the media abused George Bush. I know because I was in the Pentagon when Katrina went down. I saw what we did, mobilizing National Guard, Reserve, and active duty troops, and the hundreds of helicopters, the hundreds of crews, the thousands of vehicles, the millions of pounds of resources of water MREs pre-positioned in place before before the storm hit, and how we conducted evacuation operations post-storm when people refused to leave. Yet George Bush is a racist who hates black people, according to the media. No, I was in the Pentagon. I saw the refusal of the governors of Louisiana to remove people from places. I saw the refusal of arrogant people staying in their homes and then whining that they were disregarded because they were black or they were poor. No, you were arrogant and wouldn't leave your home during Katrina. You caused your own demise. And Katrina, the response was unbelievable. 120,000 service members were eventually involved in that within the first 10 days of the operation. Unbelievable. We had some several thousand. I have a chart somewhere, a paper chart I printed out from the Pentagon. It's unclassified, to tell the true story about what happened in Katrina, not the lies that went on. Meanwhile, here, there's nobody. 4,600 government personnel involved 5 days after the events. 5 days after the events, 4,600. The biggest storm, the biggest carnage in the history of the Southeastern United States. And this corrupt regime is pretending they've done something? No, not going to buy it for a second. Not going to buy it for a second. Then we went on to hear from Alejandro Mayorkas and his lies. He looks like Cyril Ramaphosa with an insufficient tan. The same mannerisms, the same boring voice, the same lies he gets up and spews. All right, folks, that's going to do it. See you tonight, and we'll see how it goes. All right? But whatever happens tonight, it's not going to move the needle. Kamala Harris's fate has been sealed by Iran's attack on Israel and by this storm. So we'll see how it goes. Thanks, everybody. Catch you later. Cheers.